For centuries, when we've pictured the Silk Road, we've thought of a grand story of empires. Rome, Persia, China, all linked by this legendary network of trade. We see Roman merchants haggling for silk and Chinese caravans piled high with exotic goods. It's a story we think we know. But what if I told you that for 1,000 years, the true kings of this world-shaping highway were none of them? What if the real masters of culture and commerce, the people who actually held the ancient world together, were a civilization you've probably never even heard of? They were called the Sogdians, and their story wasn't just forgotten. It was erased. The truth of why they vanished changes everything we thought we knew about the Silk Road. To get the Sogdians, you first have to unlearn the idea that power only comes from conquering armies. The Sogdians had no great empire. Their homeland, Sogdiana, a string of oasis cities in modern-day Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, was constantly being conquered by other people, from Alexander the Great to the Persians. But their power wasn't military might. It was something way more durable: influence. For nearly 1,000 years, from the 4th to the 8th century CE, the Sogdians were the undisputed masters of the Silk Road. They were the ultimate middlemen, the beating heart of the ancient world's economy. Think of them not as kings with crowns, but as the ancient version of today's tech billionaires and global influencers. People who shape the world not through politics, but through networks, knowledge, and cultural cool. Their homeland was a collection of brilliant city-states like Samarkand and Bukhara, which became fabulously wealthy as the central hubs for all trade. But their real genius was adaptability. Sogdian merchants were cultural chameleons. They were mobile, multilingual, and incredibly skilled at navigating the complex customs of a dozen different cultures. The Sogdian language became the lingua franca of the entire Silk Road, the English of its day. If you wanted to do business, you spoke Sogdian. This unique position made them more than just traders. They were cultural bees, spreading ideas, tech, and religions across continents. Sogdiana itself was a stunningly pluralistic society. Zoroastrianism was the main local faith, but it existed right alongside vibrant communities of Buddhists, Manichaeans, and Nestorian Christians. This wasn't just tolerance, it was smart business. By understanding and embracing multiple faiths, they became the perfect translators, carrying Buddhism into China and other beliefs across Asia. Their music and dance even became a sensation in Tang China, with the Sogdian whirl turning into a dance craze at the imperial court. They didn't just move goods, they moved culture itself. For centuries, this formula was unstoppable. While great empires rose and fell around them, the Sogdians thrived. They were the essential connectors, the one group that everyone, from the Byzantines to the Chinese emperors, had to deal with. They had perfected a new kind of power, one that seemed immune to the wars and politics of the age. But this golden age wasn't meant to last. The world was changing, and the very things that made the Sogdians so successful were about to become their greatest weaknesses. The unraveling didn't happen all at once, but with a series of seismic shocks that shook the foundations of their world. The first crack appeared in China. Sogdians had woven themselves deep into the fabric of the Tang dynasty, not just as merchants, but as powerful figures in the military and government. Their expertise was valued, their influence immense. But this cozy relationship turned out to be a double-edged sword. The catalyst was a man named Anlushan, a general of Sogdian Turkic heritage. He was a favorite of the emperor and a powerful military governor. In 755 CE, using his massive army, Anlushan launched a rebellion that tore the Tang dynasty apart. The Anlushan rebellion was one of the most devastating conflicts in history, weakening the empire to its very core. And because its leader was Sogdian, the entire Sogdian population in China fell under a dark cloud of suspicion. They were suddenly seen as potential traitors, dangerous foreigners. In cities like Fanyang, modern-day Beijing, brutal massacres were carried out against anyone who even looked Sogdian. Overnight, their cultural identity became a mark of shame and danger. To survive, many Sogdians in China were forced to hide who they were, changing their names and assimilating as fast as they could. The trust they had built for centuries was shattered. To understand what happened next, we have to look west, back to their homeland. Just as their reputation was being destroyed in the east, a new, unstoppable force was rising. In the 7th and 8th centuries, Muslim armies swept across Asia, conquering Persia and setting their sights on the wealthy cities of Sogdiana. The Arab conquest was unlike any the Sogdians had ever faced. Previous conquerors mostly wanted tribute, leaving the Sogdian way of life alone. But the Caliphate brought a new, unifying system of belief and government. For a people whose identity was built on religious diversity and a network of independent cities, this was a fundamental threat to their existence. The conquest wasn't just a military defeat. It was the start of a profound cultural change that would ultimately erase them from history. So how were the Sogdians erased? It's not a simple story of a lost war. They weren't wiped out in some single cataclysmic event. Instead, they were swallowed by history, assimilated so completely that their distinct identity just dissolved. The Arab conquest was the main driver. The new Islamic rulers began to dismantle the foundations of Sogdian society. Their diverse Zoroastrian temples and other shrines were targeted, but the real erasure happened more quietly, over generations. As Sogdiana was pulled into the Islamic Caliphate, converting to Islam became the practical choice for social standing, political influence, and crucially, for trade. The economic perks that once came with being a multicultural Sogdian merchant now came from being part of the vast, unified Islamic world. Gradually, the Sogdian language, once the sound of commerce across Asia, was replaced by Persian and later Turkic languages. Their unique blend of religions faded as the population converted to Islam. In China, the backlash from the Anlushan rebellion had already forced many to ditch their heritage. Now, in their own homeland, they were doing the same thing for different reasons. They didn't disappear physically. Their descendants are among the ancestors of modern Tajiks and Uzbeks. But their civilization, their language, religion, art, and name vanished. Another key reason they vanished is that they just don't fit our usual story of history. History is often written by and about big, centralized empires. The Sogdians, a decentralized network of traders without a single emperor, left behind fewer of the grand monuments and official chronicles that historians love. No modern nation-state claims them as direct ancestors to champion their legacy. For centuries, they were just footnotes in other empires' stories, the middlemen in a tale where Romans, Persians, and Chinese were the stars. It seems history forgot the influencers and only remembered the kings. For 1,000 years, the true kings of the Silk Road lay buried under the dust of history. But they weren't lost forever. Their rediscovery kicked off in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as archaeologists began to uncover the physical proof of their world. In 1907, the famous explorer Aurel Stein discovered a lost mailbag in a sealed-off cave library near Dunhuang. Inside were the ancient letters, personal and business notes written by Sogdian merchants back in the 4th century. For the first time, scholars could hear the Sogdians in their own words. Around the same time, Russian archaeologists started excavating the ruins of their great cities, like Panjikent in Tajikistan, unearthing stunning murals that showed every part of Sogdian life, from epic poems and religious rituals to huge feasts. Piece by painstaking piece, their world was brought back to life. We now know their legacy is all around us, hidden in plain sight. Their language is gone, but a direct descendant, Yagnobi, is still spoken by a small community in the mountains of Tajikistan. The Sogdian script they used was so influential, it was adapted by others, eventually becoming the basis for the Old Uyghur, Mongolian, and Manchu alphabets. The trade routes they built and the cities they founded laid the groundwork for centuries of culture to come. The story of the Sogdians is more than just a cool piece of forgotten history. It's a powerful reminder of how history gets written and who gets left out. It shows us that influence can be more powerful than armies, and that the connections between civilizations are often more important than the battles they fight. The true kings of the Silk Road didn't wear crowns. They were the architects of connection, the masters of exchange, and the ghosts who secretly shaped our world. The Sogdians prove that some of the most important chapters in our history are still waiting to be read. What other forgotten stories do you think are buried out there, ready to change how we see the past? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you want to uncover more secrets from history, don't forget to like and subscribe.